Since the very first tweet or MySpace post, social media has been a boon to bringing worlds together. But like with many of humanity's great breakthroughs in communication, with all the good comes the bad. And this week certainly showed us some of that bad, thanks to our friendly neighborhood law enforcement and corrections officers who took a fun-loving social media challenge to a very dark level. Called the Feeling Cute Challenge, the viral fun started after a Columbus Waterworks employee posted a pic of himself stating, "Feeling cute. Might cut your water off later. I don't know." This inspired many in uniform jobs around the country to send in similar photos under the hashtag Feeling Cute Challenge. That's when the controversy began, after law enforcement officers and corrections officers started posting photos with captions declaring, "Feeling cute. Might just tase your girlfriend later. Feeling cute. Might deliver OC spray to your baby daddy today. Feeling cute. Might take your homeboy to the hole today. And feeling cute. Might shoot your baby daddy today." So is this just viral media fun, or has Viral Challenge exposed a dangerous mindset and lack of morality in our law enforcement community? Joining us today to discuss is former Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Community Relations Officer Ronald Hampton. Thank you for joining us today, Ronald.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ronald, as a former officer, how does a scandal like this and seeing these kind of social media things put out there, how does that affect the trust between law enforcement and a community when they see their officers, someone they might run and have an interaction with suddenly on their social media pages posting
Well, first of all, from a historical perspective, this isn't the first time a situation like this has happened. This is happening because in the social media aspect, but it actually happened here in the District of Columbia when they first put computer monitors in cars. They had a monitoring system, and the old chief of police, the old assistant chief of police happened to had the responsibility of monitoring them from time to time, and actually discovered this conversation that was going on between police officers across the city that was on the system. And it was those kind of comments was on there, along with comments about police officers, from police officers, gay comments, and all those kind of things. So it is an unfortunate kind of thing, but it's also an example of how what has happened, the disintegration of respect and professionalism in the profession of policing. And you're right, I think it seriously reduces the respect and understanding that the community, understanding why the community doesn't have respect for the police, but how they've lost confidence in the law enforcement agencies in our cities and across the country.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So one of the things that always sort of shocks me is when they're so glib about something that is so terrifying to most civilians.
Right.
Whether, no matter the color of your skin or your gender, I think that, we are all kind of terrified of the idea of being tased, of being shot.
That's exactly right. And they seem to normalize and think that it's all right. An old police chief in the city of Los Angeles years ago, Darrell Gates, used to say, you can think these things, but you can't really say them. But now what we're finding out is that people are really saying them. And if they say them, guess what? They'll do it. You just have to give them an opportunity or create the opportunity for them to do it, and then they do it. And so that's why there's psychological, that's why there's some tests that takes place in the early stages of policing, recruit to sort of weed out those kind of people that will think a thing and then ultimately do it. But evidently the testing process wasn't successful with these individuals, because as I went through that, I would fire all of them. I think all of them need to be gone.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, that's the thing, is the idea that these things are so glib and they're nothing. I mean, you look at somewhere like, to me, there's a lot of, as you see, started with Rodney King, and how glib the officers were and how glib they were about everything. And a story that years later, I met one of the attorneys that had defended. I was working for an attorney that was working against him, just so we know what side I was on. Right, it was a police violence thing, but it was on the other side. And that attorney, when we went into his office for a meeting, literally has a bronzed version of one of the officer's boots that beat Rodney King with. He has it bronzed behind his desk. And I think that talks to some of it, that we kind of feel like we're allowed. We're allowed. And do you think that has had an impact of making it like our lives really don't matter? If
Oh,
a
yeah.
cop shows up, it's up to them whether we live or die.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it was demonstrated in Rodney King. It's demonstrated to some extent in the shootings that we've seen, because life has no value. But we only talk about certain people and in certain communities, because clearly, for example, in this city, in Georgetown, we wouldn't do that. And in New York, they wouldn't do it in Upper Manhattan. They wouldn't do it out on the island. That's just now how the law enforcement agencies and the individuals working perform in this country. And we don't do that to poor. We don't do that to rich people. What we do it to poor people.
It's interesting too, because a lot of this kind of viral, challenge, and when you saw a lot of law enforcement, there were a lot of corrections officers, a lot of people working in prisons and things like that. And I know the argument from the other side is going to be, look, we should just relax. The officers who did this are just having fun and making a joke in a way we wouldn't understand, because there is a certain dark humor, and I've talked to many police, there's a certain dark humor that you do get working in corrections and working in law enforcement, unfortunately, that comes to having to deal a lot of times with the worst parts of human nature, right? But is that a good enough of an excuse, when you see things like this, like we're seeing on our screen right now, and people writing that on social media?
Because people who work in corrections don't own the people who they supervise or look out for. There's a responsibility that they have, believe it or not, to keep them safe in that environment. And you can't keep someone safe thinking that you can put them in the hole when you want to, that you can bust them in the head when you want to, or you can spray them in the face or the eyes anytime you want to. You can't. But you do have the responsibility to look out for them. I seriously think that one of the things that we ought to be at least exposing our correction officers to, because that's a depressive environment to be working in, is some kind of evaluation and analysis around how they feel about the people that they're working with and responsible to. Because if that's the way you feel, then that's not the job for you. Yeah. I give a lot of credit to those guys that would go into the prison and work in the prison 8-9 hours a day and in that environment. But we know also that it don't have to be that type of environment in prison, because we have some model environment prisons in this country that are doing some positive things when it comes to incarcerating people.
That is very true. That is very true.
And I think it's just something that we're not looking out either for the mental health of the people that we're watching, the people we've incarcerated. But for a lot of times I keep hearing this thing that we're not looking out for the mental health of the people that are there. And these actions, I think, put your good correction officers at risk, and also makes it harder for them, and we're not looking at their mental health to handle it.
No, it's not. One of the largest county jail systems in our country, in Chicago, in Cook County, we have good leadership there. For example, there's a program where the warden is a former she's a psychiatrist by trade,
smart.
but also, and she's doing some things to look at that, because anytime we have more people that are incarcerated that have mental health problems, and really should they be incarcerated in that sense, but in some kind of sense where they get the treatment.
Mental health instance.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
Ron Mahaffno, thank you so much for coming on today.
so
Always a pleasure
Thank you.
having your knowledge and insight into these matters. Thank you.
Thank you.